Dinosaurs, woolly mammoths, epic how-to. All glorious creatures once thought dead and gone, but with science, we can bring them back. Impossible, you say? Well, we're going to show you that extinction is a thing of the past, because this is Epic How-To. We're back! Back from summer break. It was a long one. Bringing something back from the past is no easy task, and this show is no different. We're able to do today's episode thanks to Raid Shadow Legends. It's a truly epic RPG where you battle monsters, explore dungeons, and score that sweet loot! It's got over 500 champions to choose from and millions of artifacts, so your monster fighting team will be entirely unique. Whose team is that? Yours, no one else's. But Joe, I don't have a PS6 or an Xbox 12 or whatever the new consoles are. Well, guess what? You don't need them. The game fits on your phone. It could be in your pocket right now. No need to go outside, just download the app. Now's the perfect time because Raid just released the Doom Tower. Ooh. It's a new dungeon with 120 floors of monsters and artifacts and 12 badass bosses to take on. If you join in the next 30 days, you're going to get all kinds of cool stuff to help you get started, like this awesome champion Bulwark, an XP booster, free gems and energy refills, and more. All this treasure will be waiting for you here. You can find a link in the description below to get all these bonuses and start playing Raid Shadow Legends today. What are you waiting for? Do it. Did you know that 99.9% of all species that have ever existed on Earth are extinct? That's a sad fact. That's a lot of dead animals to choose from, but before you go promising your kid, or me, a pet stegosaurus for their birthday, we have to talk DNA, the blueprints of life. All living organisms use DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, to determine the growth, development, and reproduction of that organism. Everything that makes a dog or a cat is written down in the DNA, found in the nucleus of almost every cell. At its most basic level, it's only 4 molecules: guanine, cytosine, adenine, and thymine. And these pairs form what is known as base pairs, with adenine always bonding to thymine and guanine always bonding to cytosine. These are all then bonded together into the sexy double helix. It's so curvy. And that makes up a strand of DNA, and there are a lot of these base pairs. I mean, there's a lot. Humans have about 3 billion base pairs in our DNA, and the order of these base pairs is what determines your height, your weight, your skin color, eye color, and so on. When it comes time for a cell to reproduce, the double helix splits in half. And since, for instance, guanine can only bond with cytosine, when the two halves split, each half will reform the exact same DNA sequence. Cool! And even though the cells may specialize to make bone or muscle or nerves, all the cells have the same DNA, and therefore all the information needed to make that creature. Yes! Creatures science! The DNA in the nucleus are incredibly small, only a few micrometers long, which means 1/1,000,000th of a meter, but we can still extract the nucleus with the DNA intact, and that, my friends, means cloning. Cloning actually happens all the time in nature. Any organism that reproduces asexually, or the boring way, is technically creating clones. This happens with bacteria, fungi, plants, and some simple animals like worms and sea stars. And cloning can also happen in more complex creatures. For instance, if an embryo is split early in its development, then the two halves will grow to become clones of each other. This even happens with humans. Identical twins have identical DNA, so you could consider them clones of each other. And me jealous. Because they're like superheroes. But if you want to clone an adult, you have to do what's called somatic cell nuclear transfer. Basically, you start with the regular cell from the adult and remove the nucleus with all that fun DNA up inside of it. And then you take an egg cell and you remove its nucleus, replacing it with the nucleus from the adult donor cell. And now when that egg cell begins to grow, it's using the DNA blueprints from the donor and is therefore completely identical to the adult being cloned. You may have heard of Dolly, the first mammal to ever be cloned using this process in 1996. She was created at the Roslin Institute in Scotland by British scientists Sir Ian Wilmot and Keith Campbell. And while I made it sound simple, creating a viable embryo was not easy. It took 434 attempts before the DNA was successfully transferred and the embryo was accepted by the surrogate mother. But it eventually worked, and since then scientists have cloned cows, horses, dogs, cats, monkeys, and many more. And many more is such a vague statement. It's like, what aren't you telling us? How many more? And what? I mean, check this, guys. There's even a company in Texas called Viagen Pets that for the low, low price of $50,000 will clone your family dog. So if your family pet bites the dust, you don't have to make up some lie about the dog moving to a farm. You can just get a genetically identical dog for the price of a Lexus. And can a Lexus love you like a dog can? I don't know. Maybe. I think it's worth 50 grand to find out. None of this stuff has gotten me a dinosaur yet. Hurry up, science. Get me a Triceratops to ride. The return of the woolly mammoth. Oh, you want to bring back a woolly mammoth? Well, the trouble is you need an egg cell similar to the animal being cloned and intact DNA. When it comes to woolly mammoths, we actually kind of have that. Remains of mammoths have been found in the frozen tundra of Siberia, and due to the constant cold, the remains are remarkably well preserved. In fact, weird side note, a Siberian zoologist claims that he's eaten some mammoth meat that he'd found, but it tasted awful as 10,000 years in the Siberian tundra gave it the worst case of freezer burn any piece of meat has ever had. Why is he eating scientific discoveries? Like, what's wrong with this man of science? This guy's a hungry science pervert. Hungry bad science pervert guy. Stop eating discoveries. But here's the thing, these remains do have at least some DNA, and the woolly mammoth has a distant cousin that could potentially act as a surrogate mother, you know what I'm saying? Nudge, nudge, the elephant. But we can't just take the nucleus out of the mammoth cell and put it in an elephant egg. For one, the DNA from the individual mammoths is pretty degraded, so while we have enough samples to know the entire mammoth genome, which is cool, no mammoth tissue has the entire genome intact in its cells. Due to the freezer burn, we know about the freezer burn because the science hungry pervert guy.
Pervert now?
Also, mammoths are bigger than elephants, so a mammoth fetus may literally be too big for an elephant to carry or give birth to. If elephants were the dominant intelligent species in like made society and stuff, when we're making like elephant movies and expressing their individualism through their art, mammoth fetus baby would be an excellent elephant horror movie. But we're not giving up, folks. Oh no. If you still want a mammoth, you're gonna need to get a CRISPR. It stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. Obviously. It's a new technology that has been described as genetic scissors and comes from the immune response of bacteria. Get ready to learn. When these bacteria are attacked by viruses which try to insert their own sneaky virus DNA into the bacteria responds by creating a protein Cas9 that cuts out the virus DNA. Get out of here! This same protein can be used to cut any DNA helix, and the DNA will then attempt to fix the separation. But if the new DNA is injected at the cut, it will be incorporated into the helix, therefore changing the DNA sequence and changing how the organism will grow. So, take some of that Asian elephant DNA, use CRISPR to make a little snip-snip in their genome, sneak in some of that mammoth DNA we have, and suddenly, we've got ourselves a mammoth-elephant hybrid! Crazy! And now that we've got some hybrids, all you need is selective breeding. Take the biggest, hairiest hybrids and breed them, and keep breeding the offspring that are the most mammoth-like, and eventually, we have mammoths again. And more importantly, mammoth burgers. Because that's gotta be tasty.
Yeah, but when I do it, I'm the pervert, huh?
Now, all of this could work for mammoths because we still have some of that DNA. But even in the best case scenario, strands of DNA will only last about 1 million years. And since the dinosaurs died off 65 million years ago, that's a lot more. What are we gonna do? And before you say mosquitoes trapped in amber, that actually doesn't work. Amber doesn't preserve DNA any better than anything else. So no, mosquitoes don't have dinosaur DNA just waiting to be found. The movies, they lied to us. In the books. But guys, I have a little bit of good news here. Dinosaurs are actually kind of still alive. Kind of. While the giant reptiles may have died off, some say some of the dinosaurs evolved into the birds of today. For instance, there's some evidence that the chicken is a very distant grandchild of the T-Rex. And it's possible that some of that old dino DNA is still in the chicken somewhere. It's usually called junk DNA, and basically it's DNA that isn't actually used by an organism anymore, but it's still inside the genome. The body knows to ignore the DNA when growing, so it just kind of sits there doing nothing. It's like lazy DNA. Not junk DNA, it's get up off the couch and get a job DNA. It's present in almost every living thing. For instance, humans still have the DNA to make tails hidden in our genome, but our bodies usually just know not to use that. Usually. In theory, using something like CRISPR, junk DNA could be reactivated, or existing DNA strains could be turned off. So that chicken could have teeth and less feathers and a bigger size. And the colonel would be like, sign me up. Or if we start with a larger bird like an ostrich, we could change their wings into arms, give them claws and a longer tail, and basically, we got a velociraptor. Woo! This also means that the weird hybrid killer dinosaur from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is the most scientifically accurate, since any dinosaur we make today would just be a heavily gene-manipulated bird and or lizard. Which also leads me to believe that Chris Pratt training raptors is scientifically accurate as well. I pick and choose when movies lie to me. So, with some selective breeding and even more selective gene editing, you and your pet raptor can share a mammoth burger. And isn't that what we all want?
Yeah, that's what I thought too, Joe.
Everybody, thank you for watching this episode. If you want to see more, say so in the comments. Luckily, we have all that DNA from the previous Epico 2 episodes, and we'd love to throw that into a little DNA stew and make some more for you. Let this be the first of many, and we need to do that by having you do the likes and the subscribes and the shares and stuff. Like, if you all watch the video 20 times, we'll get to make more. It's a numbers game, so just watch the video 20 times. That's it. Guys, I'm Joe Beretta, and this is Epic Out. Hey, thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this episode. Check out the link in the description to start your own epic adventure today.